Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, continuing on with our pre-NCAA tournament coverage. The bracket's out. The bracket's been revealed. We broke down the East, the Midwest, the West, and the South region by region last night. 4 separate episodes. Today, I'll be giving you 2 more episodes as well as our entire bracket breakdown in prediction that we'll be going through. But today's episode for right now is the 10 best first-round matchups of the 2024 NCAA tournament. I took all 32 games that we have coming up on Thursday and Friday, and I narrowed that list down to 10 from 10 to 1, which games you really should be keeping an eye out for, some potential upsets, and just the games I think that are going to be the most exciting, thrilling, and what makes March Madness the best tournament in the entire world. So we're going to start at the top there at 10, work our way down to 1, and give you a little bit of insight of why you should be looking into these games and why they're going to be why I think they're going to be the 10 best of the entire first round. Starting at number 10, we go to the South region. Number 5, Wisconsin at 22-13 out of the Big Ten versus number 12, James Madison, 31-3 out of the Sun Belt. Friday, tip-off 9:40 p.m. on CBS. Wisconsin's a 5.5-point favorite, over under 145. And right when the bracket came out, this was penciled in as one of the bigger, more trendier upset picks of this entire bracket. JMU being that team to pull the upset, and there's fair reason to that. It is very hard to win 30 games in college basketball. James Madison proved they can beat a Big Ten team earlier in the year by going to Michigan State, the first game of the season, and win that. But this reminds me a little bit of Charleston and San Diego State last year, where everyone looked at Charleston, who had 31 wins last year. They're looking at James Madison now, who has 31 wins. And the Aztecs came out on top. It was a close game kind of throughout, but the Aztecs wound up covering. I think it was like a 5.5-point spread, kind of right in the same kind of ballpark. So Wisconsin, I think the reason why people are looking at this as a trendy upset too is they've definitely struggled over the second half of the season, but they did win 3 of 4 to end the season, took down Purdue. They had a really good game in the Big Ten tournament final against Illinois. And this was a team that at one point in the season, they were number 6 in the entire country. This is a team that can play, that team is in there somewhere. AJ Storr, Chucky Hepburn, they've got guys that can play on this squad, and I'm not ruling them out in this one. It seems like a lot of people, maybe even a majority of the people, are taking James Madison in their bracket. I think I'll take James Madison plus the 5.5 come game time, but I do think Wisconsin's going to win this game. AJ Storr is a bit of a different athlete than James Madison's used to seeing in the Sun Belt. He's been averaging 21 points a game over his last 6 games. He's hit 2 threes in 5 of those 6 games, and he's a freak athlete on the wing as well. So I think this is going to be a really good one, a tight one. Maybe even look at like James Madison first half money line, first half spread if you think they're going to win. But I think Wisconsin kind of pulls away in like the last 5 or 6 minutes and wins this game. But a great way to kind of wrap up Friday night, as this is one of the last games of the first round. Number 9, we're actually going to go to a 2:15 matchup in the South region with number 2 Marquette. They're at 25-9 this year out of the Big East versus number 15 Western Kentucky out of the CUSA. They're 22-11. This is a Friday tip as well, 2:00 on TBS. Marquette is a 14-point favorite, over under 158. Obviously, the major surrounding question mark with Marquette is the health of Tyler Coyle, last year's Big East Player of the Year. If you're not really keeping up with college basketball that much until this time of year, he's Marquette's best player. He's been out the past couple of weeks with an oblique injury. Didn't play in the Big East tournament, but regardless, it sounds like he's going to be playing. Will he be 100%? Who knows? Is he going to be 75%, 50%? Who knows? That hasn't really been told yet. If Marquette is able to kind of get out early in this one and just rest him, let him be more of a decoy, because he's going to have a tougher matchup, most likely, in the next game with either Florida, Colorado, or Boise State looming. I think that they're going to try as hard as they can to kind of get up early and put this team away, let him get as much rest as possible. But watch out for Kentucky. That's the reason that they're on this list, because they're a team that can score the ball, and I think can give Marquette some trouble with the way that they play. They put up Western Kentucky 80.6 points per game, and they have 7 players that average at least 7.5 points per game. Marquette's a team short on depth at the moment, and like I said, with the status of Coyle, who knows what's going on there. I doubt he's going to be 100%, but something to keep an eye on. I think this one could be close. Keep an eye on Dom McHenry for Western Kentucky. He averages 15.2 points per game. This is probably my favorite 15 over a 2 seed. All right, number 8 now on the top 10 matchups of the first round. We go to the West, where we have Mississippi State there at 21-13 versus number 9 Michigan State, who's 19-14. First game of the tournament on Thursday, 12:15 tip on CBS. Michigan State a 1-point favorite, over under 130.5. Very intrigued to see how many percentage of brackets take Michigan State in this first game. A much more notable college basketball brand, obviously with a lot more tournament success up their sleeve as well. But I'm saying you should fade the Spartans in this one. I don't even think they deserve to be in the field. Those 14 losses, they struggled against top competition. Michigan State has won at least one game in 8 of the last 10 NCAA tournaments, though. So that's certainly something to note. But I just think all year they've been trying to put it together, and they just never have. As I said earlier, they lost to James Madison in that first game of the season. It seems like ever since then they were just kind of shell-shocked a little bit, and they haven't been able to fully put it together. We've seen some good games, but not very consistent. Mississippi State, Josh Hubbard and Tolu Smith is a duo that you don't want to mess with. I think they get bounced here. I think Tolu Smith has a big day on the weak Michigan State front court, but I expect that one to be a fist fight back and forth. Maybe even look at the under. Could see that one be playing in like the low 60s. Or we go to the 7th best matchup now out of the East. Number 8 Florida Atlantic at 25-8. Last year's darling going to the Final Four. First, number 9 Northwestern, who's 21-11 out of the Big Ten. This is the first game on Friday, 12:15 tip on CBS. FAU's a 2.5-point favorite. Over under sitting there at 141.5. I'm a huge Boo Buie fan for Northwestern. He's one of the funner guys in this tournament. He's on my list of top 20 players to watch as well, from the more so kind of under the radar guys after you get past the All-Americans. But he could really will Northwestern to a win here. But over their last 9 games, he's played 37 or more minutes in 8 of them. He might just be a little too tired, a little too fatigued. You're 32 games into the season now. I think he might just be a little bit too worn down, and Northwestern's a little too reliant on him to really take over in a late situation. He certainly has the talent to, but this is a FAU team that's much deeper and has guys that they can spread it around to that I think are going to be able to kind of just wear Northwestern out as the game goes along. FAU, 3 players that average 13 points per game or more. John L. Davis, 18.2. Vlad Golden, 15.6. And Elijah Martin, 13.3. John L. Davis is awesome. He averaged 15 points a game last year as well in the March Madness run. He had a few big games, over 20 points. And they were 9-3 this year when he scored 20 or more. So I think that's going to be an awesome one. Gave it out on the breakdown yesterday. Maybe look at that one, plus 950 for an overtime game. I think that could be a potential fun bet for some of these coin flips. Number 6, we're going to the West. Number 4, Alabama at 21-11 versus number 13, Charleston, 27-7. Friday night, 7:35 tip on True TV. Bama's a 9.5-point favorite, over under 173.5. And if you like points, this is probably the game for you. This is the wildest trend, I think, of the first round. But Charleston, 20-0 when they score 80 or more. All of 11 Alabama losses this year, they allowed 80 or more points. So will one of these trends come to an end? That remains to be seen. But the total opened at 170, already up to 173.5. I think we're going to see fireworks here. Bama has allowed 100 or more in 3 of their last 6 games as well. But at the same time, that's the SEC competition. Charleston hasn't seen anything like Alabama this year. I think Alabama is going to be able to defend these guys a little bit better than in Auburn, at Kentucky, at Tennessee. They don't have the athletes. They don't have the scorers. But Charleston's still going to be able to get up and down the court and shoot a lot of threes. I think the over is just a fun play in this one. It's a very high total. It's the highest total in the NCAA tournament in over 20 years. But that's going to be a fun and exciting game, and that's why I cracked number 6 on my list. Number 5, we're going to the Midwest. Number 4, Kansas at 22-10 out of the Big 12, obviously, versus number 13, Samford, 29-5 out of the SoCon. So second to last game on Thursday night, 9:55 tip on TBS. Kansas, an 8-point favorite, over under 152.5. This is the least hype I've seen around Kansas really entering the NCAA tournament in quite some time. Samford, 9th in the country in pace per game. Kansas currently ranks 95th in pace per game. So I am expecting another up and down game here. Not quite as up and down as Alabama versus Charleston, but still, this one should be back and forth. Kansas has been really struggling recently, and they really struggle away from home. 349th in the country in the away from home metric, 314th in consistency, the up and down nature of their season, with guys in and out of the lineup with health, and 339th in momentum. One of the worst momentum teams in the country right now entering the tournament. Seems like there's a lot of recipes for an upset here, so that's why this is one of the games to watch. I still think Kansas is going to win, though, as long as McCullough and Dickerson are able to play. That talent, I think, is just eventually going to triumph Samford. Samford might hang around. You might look to take Samford there plus the 8. And if you're feeling dangerous enough, maybe on the money line. But if those Kansas guys are 85 to 90% healthy, they're going to, I think, just roll with their talent. Samford played Purdue earlier in the year. They lost by 45. Like, this is a Samford team that I think their full court press system, shoot a lot of three system, it's really dependent on playing weaker competition. When you play these top dogs with more talent than you, you're going to get exposed. And that's my take on this Kansas game. I'm not doubting Bill Self against Samford. I'm going to take them to win and advance, but I think that's going to be a fun and exciting game. And if Kansas, who struggled with depth all year, if they get guys in foul trouble or their guys just get gassed from the Samford system, we're going to be getting alerts on our phone that Samford has a chance to pull off the upset with a couple minutes left. So watch out for that one, but I'm not buying into the full upset. I'm going to take Kansas to win there. Number 4 game, we're going to the Midwest region. Number 5, Gonzaga at 25-7 versus number 12, McNeese at 30-3 out of the Southland. Gonzaga coming out of the West Coast Thursday night, 7:25 on TBS. Zags are a 6.5-point favorite, over under 148.5. Gonzaga, about a month or two ago, it was kind of in question whether they would make the tournament or not. They had a really good end of the season, beat St. Mary's. They beat Kentucky at Kentucky as well. But other than that, the major question with this team was, do they have really top-end talent, any NBA guys on the roster? And the answer is no. And it's not like there's a trade deadline in college basketball where they were able to go out and get someone in the middle of the season. I think they just benefited from playing poor conference play as they usually do. Since February 1st, though, Gonzaga is the 12th best team in the country according to Torvik. When you look at McNeese State, they've won 25 of their last 26 games. They've been on a roll. They've really dominated conference play except for one loss. This is the first round matchup in the Midwest region that I think I'm looking forward to the most as it cracks number 4. I think it's going to be awesome. Gonzaga against a potential up-and-coming mid-major here in McNeese State. Should be really fun, but I'm going to take McNeese State to win that game with the 12-5 upset. We go to the West region now. Number 6, Clemson at 21-11 versus number 11, New Mexico, who's 26-9. Friday tip at 3:10 on True TV. New Mexico's a 1.5-point favorite. Over/under sitting there at 151. One of the matchups too that just popped off the page to me once I saw it on the bracket. Really excited. Surprised to see New Mexico wasn't even going to make the tournament unless they won the Mountain West. I thought they were going to be a team in, at least because they made the title game. But it sounded like they only got in because they got the auto bid. So I was surprised to hear that. And I was really high on Clemson early in the season. I was really beating my chest for them. But the middle of the year was kind of rough. They won 8 of 11 to close, but they did lose 3 out of 4. So consistency is another kind of problem with this team. This is a Clemson team where at their best, they went to North Carolina and won. They could play with anyone in the country, but they can also play down and lose to anyone. They're that type of team. I'm going to take the Tigers, though. I'm fading the conference tournament winners. New Mexico is a super fun team to watch, but they had to use pretty much everything just to make it to this point. Are they able to get over the top and get a big win here and maybe even go knock off the winner of the Baylor-Colgate game and go to the Sweet 16? New Mexico plus 240 to make the Sweet 16 remains to be seen. I think it's still a little bit of a question, but super talented team. They're not going to be out-talented by Clemson. I think Clemson might just be a better overall squad at the end of the day. And used to playing some better competition there for most of the season. New Mexico, though, 4 players that average at least 12.5 points per game. Jalen House leads the way at 16.1. Lobos went 7-2 this year when he scored 20 or more. So I think that's going to be a really fun matchup. 2 teams that I've followed closely the entire season. All right, 2 more games now. We go to the East. Number 7, Washington State at 24-9 out of the Pac-12 versus number 10, Drake, who's 28-6. Thursday, 10:05 tip on True TV. Drake -2, over under 138. I've been beating the Drake drum for a few weeks now. Tucker DeVries has been awesome. He's going to be the best player on the court in this one. Last year, it's a Drake team too that had Miami on the ropes. If they were a 12 seed last year, Miami was a 5, and Drake led Miami by 5 at halftime, and Miami went on to the Final Four. So the Drake team brought back some experienced guys, especially their best player in DeVries. They led 55-49 with 3:50 left when it was the under 4 media timeout. Miami finished the game on a 14-1 run. So they've shown that they can play with these Power 6 teams. Do they lose steam at the end? Potentially, but Washington State was an exciting team out of the Pac-12 too. They shoot a lot of threes, a fun team. Miles Rice out there. Drake has won 10 of 11 to end the season though, and they were 17-2 when DeVries scored 20 or more. He's 6th in the country this year with 21.8 points per game and 13 games with 25 or more points. He's the type of player where they win this and then they have a matchup likely with Iowa State. I could definitely see Drake winning that one as well. He's the type of guy that can take March by storm and be a superstar type player. So My favorite matchup, though, of the entire first round, right when I saw this come onto the channel on CBS, I was like, wow, let's go. That's going to be a fun one. It's a perfect time slot, too. Friday, tip 6:50 on TNT. Number one game for me in the first round. South region, number 8, Nebraska, 23-10 versus number 9, Texas A&M, 20-14. Nebraska -1, over under 147.5. Have to ride with my Aggies, though, and I'm going to have a surprise, too. I'm going to have them knock off Houston in the next round as well, but this is awesome. Nebraska, fun team to watch this year. Have a bunch of guys. Tominaga, Roberts is one guy, I believe his name as well, but they just have guys that can go out there and score. Tominaga, really fun shooter. He can get hot in a hurry. Made 3 or more threes in multiple games this year. When you look at Texas A&M, though, they can play with anyone and they can lose anyone. They beat Kentucky twice this year. They lost to Vanderbilt. They beat Iowa State earlier in the year. They're just the most unpredictable team. I took them to go to the Elite Eight. They're my kind of surprise team of the entire bracket. I think going that far as a 9 seed, but they play a hard style to prepare for. Radford and Wade Taylor are 2 really good, talented guards. And then they have the best offensive rebounding team in the country, 17.2 offensive rebounds per game. It's a hard style to prepare for. Nebraska, when you look at them, the only team they played this year that's top 25 in offensive rebounds per game is Illinois. And Illinois beat Nebraska in both of the matchups they had this year. I think a Wade Taylor March run is coming, but I think this one is a fun game. Another one where I'm going to look at maybe even taking the overtime bet. It's NCAA tournament. Throw in some fun bets. Throw in some underdog money lines. Throw in some race to 10, race to 15, race to 20 points for some of these underdogs at plus money. And maybe even throw in some of these overtime games, like some of these ones that I'm expecting to be awesome. Nebraska, Texas A&M, FAU versus Northwestern, Clemson, New Mexico. Like, I think all these games are pure kind of coin flips. Mississippi State, Michigan State, that could go to overtime. Some buzzer beaters, stuff like that, where I think it was plus 950 for some of these 8-9 games to go to overtime. Be awesome to see, and really looking forward to all 10 of these games, but especially this last one here in Nebraska and Texas A&M. Those are the 10 games that I'm looking forward to the most on Thursday and Friday in the NCAA tournament. An honorable mention will be the winner of the Colorado versus Boise State game against Florida. I think that's going to be a really fun one as well. But that'll do it for this episode of the Beef Up Front podcast as we get you ready for March Madness, the top 10 games in the round of 64. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please check out the rest of the videos that we've done throughout the week, and enjoy the madness.